Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy, the show that talks 100% LA Galaxy soccer. We're glad you can join us. Now it's time to sit back and relax. Your hosts navigate through the twisting, turning, but never boring world of five-time MLS Cup champion LA Galaxy.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com, coming to you live on a Thursday, July 2nd, fresh off of the first LA Galaxy game, scrimmage, anything that we've been able to see in so long. We're going to talk about that scrimmage, talk about what we learned, maybe what we didn't learn, and then there's a whole bunch of news, including COVID tests, Juninho Marcelo Sarvas news, a whole bunch of stuff all lined up for you. So we are excited to be joining you to help you out. We brought him back. It's Eric, the Portuguese Hammer. Eric, how's it going, buddy?
It's going all right. I'm glad you said we brought him back. Were you thinking about it? Was there a possibility I was going to get cut? Did I make the transfer window?
I was going to say, it's a contemplation for you. You should always just imagine that there's a possibility that this could be your last show. I mean, really, that's the kind of energy I bring to the team, you know?
Perfect. Live my life like this is my last show. I appreciate it.
There you go. I think that's a good idea. You got to watch a soccer game today. I know some of it, maybe not all of it. I know people were certainly scrambling to try to find streams. I know that wasn't always successful. I know that, once again, Spectrum made things more difficult. Listen, if you don't have Spectrum, it's difficult to watch it. That's your first hurdle, trying to find it. And then the fact that Spectrum... Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, if you don't have Spectrum, you're out of luck. There's no other options unless you're going through different avenues. So... that's the first part of it. And then the second part is, you said we watched the soccer game today. I don't know that we could call that a soccer game.
Oh, wow. Harsh already. You've seen two regular season games.
It's not a total dig. I'm just saying it wasn't a full game.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting, and I know we're going to talk about it. Like what did we see? What did we even know? That you have to understand that, like, even from the start of this, it was billed as LA Galaxy versus LA Galaxy 2, and that's sort of what we expected to see. And then Guillermo went in and mixed up the lineups. I have no problem with him mixing up the lineups. It ended up being basically LA Galaxy Blue versus LA Galaxy Gray, which is a fun scrimmage to have. And quite honestly, with the number of players that you have on a senior roster, Eric, you should be able to field two starting 11s, even with some subs, in this particular case, and put it together from a senior team thing. So more than saying, it's an LA Galaxy 2 versus, the senior team, realistically, this should have been, I thought, a starting team versus a sub sort of team that you put together, and maybe you rotated people across the half line, at a halftime, so that way you could say, well, but I want to see what you do with sort of the starters, and we didn't see that. So I know we're going to talk about that, and I think there's some positives and negatives in terms of what it was. I also sat in and got to ask some questions on a conference call afterwards with Dennis DeClosa and Guillermo Barros Schelotto, so I can talk to you a little bit about what Guillermo saw and what Dennis sees from stuff that is going to be happening here in the future. A lot of it obviously was centered around Orlando. So the Orlando tournament's certainly something we're going to talk about there. We have injury updates, and the Jonathan Dos Santos injury is certainly something we need to talk about, because that's going to have some long-lasting effects, certainly through this tournament. So we're going to get you that and a whole bunch of other things. So let's start at the beginning here, Hammer. The very first thing, by the way, we have to put out, and I have missed this, and it's not that I didn't know what was going on. I put it on my rundown a couple times and I forgot to get to it because I put it at the bottom. So I screwed up. I admit it. I put it at the top. But there was an Angel City Brigade member who was shot and killed. And his nickname was Easy. And so the LA Galaxy put out a photo before the game, and it says "Rest Easy," and it's a great banner. I don't know who made the banner. I don't know if there were a whole bunch of banners in this, so I don't know if the Galaxy had this made or if somebody else from ACB did it and gave it to the LA Galaxy. I don't know all the details, and I apologize for that. But I also know, and I helped a little bit with retweets and trying to get it out, but that a bunch of LA Galaxy fans and family members, sort of came together to make sure that this young man had the funeral that he most definitely deserved, and his parents didn't have to pay that out of pocket. And I think within 24 hours, we easily crested that $15,000 mark that they were asking for. So all great. A real tragedy in terms of what happened, but as normal, an LA Galaxy family sort of pulls together. So rest easy. Certainly from all of us here at Corner of the Galaxy, and everybody, please stay safe out there. I know it's not the best of days right now with COVID and everything else that's going on, and certainly the social unrest and all those things. But stay safe. That's my one thing. I know you were involved in this too, Eric, tweeting it out and different things.
Yeah, similar to you. Again, I didn't know him personally, but what I mentioned, and you saw the GoFundMe, and you saw people who did know him, Easy Carrillo, and people who got along with him. It's it's a tragedy, and when anyone dies, it's not a good thing, but especially when it's a young age, and when it's the type of way that the circumstances ended up, it really is a tragedy. And so I mentioned I didn't know him personally, but knowing that he was a member of Angel City Brigade, knowing that he was a Galaxy fan, this is what makes the LA Galaxy community fantastic, is that they rally around each other in difficult times. So being able to, retweet that GoFundMe link, I saw it all over Instagram with the supporters groups also, working with each other. So to see the Galaxy themselves, the team, the organization do this as a gesture, based on what I saw and from what I understand, a lot of those banners, the supporters groups created them, and then they were displayed in the stadium today during the scrimmage, and I believe they'll be on display tomorrow for the supporter send-off. So, a great gesture. Even though you may not know everyone personally, we're all connected. We're all part of the same family. And to see the Galaxy community rally around their own and provide support to make things just a little bit easier. Obviously you're never going to make things right with something like that, but if you can make it a little bit easier and make that burden a little bit less, that's really all you can ask for. So big props to the LA Galaxy for the gesture, and big props to everyone who was able to donate or support in any way that they could. For some people, they're able to support financially. For other people, it's just passing that message along and giving your condolences. So condolences to him and his family, and a shout out to everyone involved.
Yeah, condolences to his family at Angel City Brigade. Hopefully, seeing the community come together tries to mend that wound just a little bit. I know it doesn't really matter in terms of trying to fill that void, but nonetheless. So let's go to a little bit happier stuff. We'll switch over to the soccer, but it was an important sort of part before this. Now, again, we told you it was supposed to be LA Galaxy versus LA Galaxy 2. It wasn't. Realistically, it was supposed to be 25-minute halves, 25 minutes and 25 minutes, and it wasn't. It was 30-minute halves and 30-minute halves. The press release said that it was going to start at about 11 and go. And listen, Spectrum started and broadcasted at about 11, and then they had a little pregame show with Kobe Jones, and then Joe Tutino and Kobe Jones called the game remotely. They had Megan Riza out on the sideline covering the game in her first back. By the way, you should head on over to her Instagram account because she showed what it took to sort of get into Dignity Health Sports Park, including the hands-free temperature readings where you stand in front of it and then it like scans you and it goes, by the way, the sign says that if you pop for a temperature, like if your temperature is over the threshold, I don't even know, but it's probably over like 100.4 is my guess. But if it's over that, they told you to go stand in the shade for 10 minits and come back and try again. So I thought it was like, it's funny.
I'm getting my son ready for kindergarten. So there's some, vaccination visits that we've been on a schedule. So we've been going to the doctor and getting them all set up. And so it always worries me because, he's sitting by the son in the car and then we show up and then if they turn him away, but I'm absolutely on the same page with following Megan Riza. If you're not already there, it was interesting to see that could be, whenever things shake out, fans going in the stadium, media entering, that's probably going to be how the entrance is going to work. So it was an interesting little sneak preview. But going back to the, being billed as LA Galaxy versus LA Galaxy 2, I have no problem if they're going to do a mixed squad scrimmage. It just, tell me what you're going to do. I think I used some more colorful terms in a text message. When you go to the doctor,
yes.
I'm getting to that age and I have a history of prostate cancer in the family. So, you like the doctor to let when he's going to check for those things. You just don't want to be surprised. Right. So, if it's going to be an inter-squad scrimmage, and again, you can't compare the two, but I just did. If it's going to be an inter-squad scrimmage, then let people know that it was billed as something, and it was something different. Is it the biggest deal in the world? No. But, it just kind of was off-putting, and I'm with you, and we'll talk a little bit more about what does that mean when you do an inter-squad as opposed to trying to get your first 11 side all on one team.
Yeah, so we ended up with blue and gray. The blue starting 11 was David Bingham, Araujo, Steres, Depew. It just says Dupuis. When you look at it, it says you should say it as Dupuis. It's
you gotta
very
spell
difficult.
it out different.
Yeah, Depew, Traore, Perez. By the way, it was funny because everybody's last name except for Perry Kitchen, which was spelled out Perry. So Perry, I guess, or Kevin, however you want to call him. Mr.
Steve
Kitchen
Perry
was in there. Sasha Kleshtin, Emil Cuello, Chicharito, and Ethan Zubak. So that was the blue team. The gray team was Vom Steeg in goal, and then you had Insua, Ferkranis, who is an academy center back who we can talk a little bit about. I mean, listen, he was an academy center back. That's what you need to know. People Gonzalez, Felcher, Dunbar, Corona, Harvey, Leggett, Pavone, and Wild. All right, so those were your lineups there. And it was sort of interesting to see how they had them lined up. But you can see, Eric, in this is that you go to the biggest concern that anybody has about this LA Galaxy team, and it is that through the first two games, and certainly through the preseason, they were not on the same page with Chicharito. And that's a problem. And it's something you need to work on, something you need to do. So what you saw here was that I would say the blue team has more, you can look at it. The blue team had more starters on it, but it's still, it's a hodgepodge of a lineup. Either way that you look at it, you're not getting I think the chemistry that really you should be trying to develop over all of this. And you didn't have to play, an academy team and just have it be, because there's a whole bunch of arguments. One of the arguments, Eric, is that if you have the first team play a second team, that the first team isn't going to try that hard because they know they can beat the second team, and the second team is going to try really hard, and somebody might end up getting hurt. Like there's all these different things. I get it,
because no one got hurt during today's scrimmage anyway, so it's not like that was the concern.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know exactly. So I wonder what you're trying to get from this whenever you do it. Now, we can skip to, before we even get to anything else. I asked Guillermo basically that question in the press conference, which was, okay, I saw you mixed up the lineups. What were you hoping to get out of this, and did it help you get ready for Orlando? And his argument was this was about individual stuff. It's about individual. There were no tactics that he was working on today. It was about individual performances, and that's what he wanted. And he wanted to get the guys 60 minutes of running around. And I'm like, then why just let them run around for 60 minutes if that's what you're going to do. I really disagree with this look.
Yeah, that response is concerning to me because, again, we're, 13 days out, 12 days out from the Galaxy's first matchup in Orlando, and the whole preseason and the first two games that they played, you're right, the chemistry was not there with Chicharito. And to not have at least Pavone and Chicharito on the same squad, you need to start getting them to gel and work together. The other thing that's concerning from the mixed squad lineup is if semicolons are important to you when they put those lineups out. One was a 4-4-2 and one was a 4-5-1. So if it's not tactics, then there were two different tactical lineups put on there. Is the plan in Orlando to put Zubak paired with Chicharito? If that's something that they're going to be trying out, then okay, then I get why that's necessary. But if it's not, then you want that chemistry with Pavone. We didn't mention Alexander Katai is no longer on this lineup. So who's going to fill in that role? Are the players that were on that squad, is one of them going to fill in? And so I think you needed that attacking midfield and forwards needed to be on the same squad to get any type of chemistry. To say it's individual, that's great, but then you could do individual assignments in your regular closed training. The whole purpose of a scrimmage or of a game style environment is to practice those tactics. So GBS, I think the honeymoon period is over with him as far as tactics. I think some of that shine has left off. So I think this is a little bit concerning. We'll see if it's something that continues once we get to Orlando, and if it still seems like tactically there's no changes from his mentality and what he's doing, and he's not adjusting to his players, then his time here might not be very long. And again, I just took an inter-squad scrimmage and put GBS on the hot seat. So am I making more out of it? Maybe I missed soccer a little too much, and I'm getting too fired up about this.
Yeah, I know. We were sort of joking about that before we even started. Was like maybe it was more fun when they didn't play games. Maybe it's like I haven't seen any soccer for a while, so maybe I'm just getting too amped up about this. And Robert in the chat room says a simpler answer is that this was all for fun, and that's a great sort of hey, cool, that is. But then you're throwing away a training session, and really this was supposed to be a training session that gets you not only 60 minutes of work, And by the way, they struggled to get to 60 minutes. Can we just all agree that that was just some? But listen, it was a scrimmage.
And at 60 minutes, they looked gassed as well.
Yeah, and so you're talking about a team that's supposed to be playing 90 minutes in 11 days. If is it 11 days? I don't even know. In a matter of days, very short amount of time. They're supposed to be playing. Yeah. Unless there you go. Thank you. Good way to put some brackets on it. In less than 2 weeks, they're supposed to be playing 90 minutes, and they look gassed. And some of that was from poor running. Some of it is from just bad positioning. All those things that you can look at. There were some. Let's talk about highlights though. I mean, there are things that you can try to take a little bit of. Efrain Alvarez was back on the field. Remember, he did not get to play because he was injured. He got injured in a scrimmage before the season started, so he wasn't playing whenever they suspended everything, and it looked like he was close to coming back whenever they suspended on March 12th. And now that comes back, and it's like, okay, Efrain is back on the field, and he played, and he looked exactly like Efrain Alvarez. And that's maybe a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know. It was really, and we talked about looking at the pairs of players, but it was, you try to find the connections there. And I don't know that I saw a whole bunch of connections where I was like, oh yeah, that's going to be great. And we talk about the big question of who's on the right-hand side, who's going to fill that spot. And for me, it was Koreniuk. I was like, oh, cool. Guess what? That dude, I didn't see that dude on anybody's lineup today. So he didn't play. Now, either that means he's injured or it means that Guillermo doesn't think that he's going to be. I mean, if you're not on either of these rosters, you're really not playing, right now.
You're not in the plan. You're not in the plan for Orlando, which is odd because they announced that signing last week. And so to see someone like, I'm sorry, the name is escaping me. Frickiness. I'm going to mess up that pronunciation. Right? No, the Academy defender.
That dude, right. Frankincense.
I'm going to botch it. See, I don't want to be rude.
For Kranis.
Thank you. That's what it is.
Yes.
I was going to say something way off. But again, if he's getting the minutes here, but Koreniuk hasn't, and he's someone that hasn't called in, I don't know. Does it mean something? Is it possibly just an injury? Is it a precaution? Did he want to see something else? I don't know. I liked seeing Gordon Wild get the penalty. I think he's someone, the way GBS talks about him and the way he's kind of working his way into it. He maybe is someone who's going to be a backup. And if they drew the penalty, you had other senior members on the squad, but to have him take it, maybe that's a good sign that he'll get some positive minutes moving forward.
He was one of my better lookers on the day. I mean, you could talk about it. I'll be honest. The guy who looked the most dangerous the whole night was Ethan Zubak. And I don't know if that's good or bad. I said that, and everybody was like, oh, God. And you're kind of right. I mean, Chicharito was out there, and let's talk about this. Chicharito picked up a knock in the 29th minute in the first half when Pipo Gonzalez, a horrible Pipo tackle. It was just mistimed and bad and awkward and everything that Pipo Gonzalez has sort of stood for with his time with the LA Galaxy. And he came in right behind Chicharito on like knee to the back of the knee contact type of thing. Javi was slow to get up, and it was halftime quickly after that because it was only 30-minute halves. And he walked to the locker room, and that was it.
So I knew when he went down, the way he was holding it and favoring it, and given the timing of it, I knew he wasn't going to come back out for the second half. And you're right. That is Pipo Gonzalez, and matter of fact, it's Chicharito's. That's a summation of their time with the Galaxy so far. Chicharito just can't seem to get it going, getting knocked down before getting any momentum, and then Pipo just there seem to be errors just aplenty whenever he takes the field. So unfortunate to see how that all goes down. Hopefully it's not too serious with the injury to Javi there.
Yeah, GBS after the game was asked about his status, and it was said that he doesn't think it's anything serious. He actually expects that Javi would be able to train tomorrow with the LA Galaxy. So the Galaxy trained tomorrow on Friday, and then it sounds like they're taking it easy Saturday, Sunday, and then possibly train on Saturday, and then Sunday they're off, and then Monday they travel. That sort of seems like what the status is of them going, because Monday is their departure to Orlando, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But so Javi picks up that knock. Guillermo basically said, if he's not able to train with us even in these next couple of days, he'll be fine. We'll take him to Orlando. So we'll see if all of that stuff comes through, if any of that stuff makes sense. And I'll tell you this right now, Chicharito or Guillermo is not always the best on injuries. Whenever he sees people, everybody always has a knock, and it's never not that serious. And so when you look at it that way, you can sort of understand that, perhaps it's more serious than GBS says, but I don't think that's the case in this one. The other knock that was picked up was Corona, apparently. Joe Corona picked up a knock in this game, and it was a knee. He had a little pain in his knee. Guillermo says it doesn't think he's anything, and it's sort of the same deal. It's not serious. We expect him to be ready to train, and if not, he'll be heading to Orlando with us. So those were the injuries that got picked up, and then we haven't even talked about the injury to Jonathan Dos Santos. Now, I'm sure everybody knows, but Jonathan Dos Santos is going to have, or did have today.
Today.
Yeah.
So again, you got to follow on Instagram. He posted today that he had successful surgery, but I'll let you, go on.
Minimally invasive hernia operations. He's expected to miss, well, it says 6 weeks. Dennis DeClosa after this game said that he would expect he'd miss 4 to 5 weeks. Same general area. I'm not really going to worry about. Jonathan Dos Santos had a groin injury earlier this season, and he only played 45 minutes in the second game. Remember, he missed the Houston game, and then he only played 45 minutes for the LA Galaxy against Vancouver in the loss, where Joe Corona picked up 2 yellow cards and ended up being a 10-man. It feels like this was 3 years ago that we're talking about this game. It wasn't that long. This was in this same season.
That wasn't last season?
It feels like it. It absolutely does. So there's all these things. So Jonathan Dos Santos had a groin injury. I imagine they're probably all related. All in the same general area, and so we'll see how that ends up happening. But the hernia surgery basically puts him out for 6 weeks. In the release, and whenever I asked the LA Galaxy, I asked them when this happened, and they said they didn't know. Dennis gave us a little bit more of a window on this, and he said that it happened a couple of weeks ago. Jonathan Dos Santos slipped. He was basically like in training, and he was reaching for something, like a ball or something, and you go to reach with your foot, and his body slipped, and that can happen sometimes. When it did, he had like this injury that sort of, that they had. And then they took a couple weeks because they're like, it doesn't seem like it's that bad, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and rehab it, and then it'll be better and you'll be all good, and we think that's the best course of action, because if we have surgery, we know it's 6 weeks and you're going to miss the tournament. So
we'll push back on it a little bit, just because when he had those injuries, he posted a picture of him in the hospital, and we looked into it, and it was a pain specialist, so it made you think that it was something a little bit different with the nerve, and the hernia surgery kind of leads to that. I have his Instagram post, and it's translated, so it might not be one for one, but it says surgery based on hernia repair with nerve resection was a success. Thank God. Let it be clear that I did everything to be able to be in the tournament in Orlando, but unfortunately I had been suffering with this discomfort that had prevented me from being 100% of my chances. So this is something he likely had, and it's something that sounds familiar. I've actually had minimally invasive hernia surgery to repair a disc that was pinching on a nerve, and so it makes sense if you do the timeline. He had these injuries leading up. It's possible that he had this nerve issue prior, and it was something that was bothering him, and then when you think you can rehab and you take a slip, it takes a turn, and you need to go in and have that taken care of. So the good news is it's something that's a pretty common practice nowadays. It's an easy fix of 6 weeks seems about right, especially for someone who's an athlete and is going to recover a little bit better. But it just seems to me like maybe this is what he had before. It was bothering him, and then just something happened in training that maybe was the final straw that sent him.
Yeah, it is all very interesting. And listen, lots of people were like, "Oh man, he did this just that way he didn't have to go to the turn." No, you don't have surgery. You can just opt out. You really don't have to have like a great reason. You can just say, "No, I'm not going to go." That's not what happened. He had surgery. You don't have surgery. You don't fake surgery in order not to go to a tournament. I mean, that doesn't make any sense.
And my question was, well, why surgery now? If this was an issue, why didn't he have it sooner? And again, I love the guy who peaked at 19, which is me, try to compare himself to the athlete. But when you have that nerve damage, initially you try rehab, you try physical therapy, you try, I think I even saw him doing acupuncture and all. You try all these different methods, and then once everything doesn't work, then you use surgery as kind of the final result. So it seems like he was trying to do everything he could from a rehab standpoint, and surgery was what they finally landed on now. So the timing's unfortunate, but I don't believe it was a premeditated thing. I think he worked through all of his options, and this is
Yeah, that makes the most sense to me. If we sort of transition back to the scrimmage, knowing that you had Jonathan Dos Santos missing, and you wanted to see who was going to sort of play in those, I think the pairing of Kleshin and Kitchen is going to be probably your best answer on that. For my money, I thought Sasha Kleshin was able to dictate the terms of the game better than any player on the field, but he's a veteran, and I would expect that from him. I didn't like his link-up play with Chicharito. I don't think. Listen. The bottom line is that if Zubac was a better player, Chicharito scores in the first half, because there was a wide open play in the first half that should have been an easy layoff, and Zubac instead decided to take it, and he screwed it up. Having said that, Zubac was one of the most dangerous offensive players that the LA Galaxy probably had on either side of the field. Probably first. Second would be Gordon Wild, as you sort of talked about. Wild had a couple ones. I would just like to see him with a little bit more composure. He seems to really hit things hard all the time. Efrain Alvarez skied the best chance of his afternoon whenever he got a ball in the center of the field, turned, had spaced, and then skied it into row Z back behind the goal. It was all just crosses were missing, as you'd expect from the LA Galaxy. Passes weren't crisp. It was just I think, Eric, didn't you say did we just watch soccer? Was that soccer? It doesn't feel like soccer.
Yeah, it was a training session. If the point was to get them to run around, that's what we saw. We saw them run around. The one thing with Zubac, he does put himself in the right position. So that's the one positive. He seems to be in the right place at the right time. It's just the finishing's not there. The layoff isn't there. So he's just missing that final piece. It seems like he has a lot of the pieces. He's just missing, unfortunately, the piece that's most important when it comes to scoring goals. And we mentioned a lot of players, and the one player we didn't mention is Cristian Pavon. Again, he's a class above everyone else. Even though it was a scrimmage, he was the only one who looked like he's game fit and ready to roll, and someone that you can hitch your wagons to. Again, his touch and volley on his goal was incredible, and he seems to do that and have a knack for making it look so easy. So he's someone. The blow with Jonathan Dos Santos out for the tournament hurts, but you still have Cristian Pavon, and that's the one shining star that you could hang your hat on heading into the Orlando tournament. But I'd like to see him link up with Chicharito. As opposed to Zubac.
They were on opposite teams. You didn't get to see that. So yeah, I know. We'll beat that dead horse continuously. David in the chat room, by the way, also says that Carlos Harvey was a beast. I agreed on that. He was number, I think, 67, right? 67 who was out there. Harvey, he looked comfortable. He looked good. He gave the ball away a couple times. I don't mind people giving the ball away whenever they're trying to make the correct passes. And sometimes the lanes just get closed down. So I don't mind with that. It's about being smart enough to know when you can get away with trying to make those passes and not. So Carlos Harvey looked good, and he's a new signing, the 20-year-old Panamanian from LA Galaxy 2. He's a loan up. He's technically not even a loan up because he's on loan to LA Galaxy 2. So technically the loan is from his parent club, I think Taro FC in Panama. And so they're loaning him to the LA Galaxy for this tournament. This could be somebody the LA Galaxy actually look at acquiring full time. It makes some sense, but with the loan right now, it's a good way to sort of try him out. I would say that the Galaxy have been pretty good with loans in a lot of ways over the years. Remember when all the Brazilians came, and one of those guys ended up being Juninho, who we're going to talk about a little bit as well. But to finish this off, the gray team wins 2-0. The blue team had I think, some of the better chances. But Cristian Pavon is never going to be left alone at the top of a box like that ever in the history of Major League Soccer. And if they did, then you would see him full volley trap and then full volley shot into the net. And it's like he already knew it was in whenever he trapped the ball the first time, because he traps it, he hits it, and he just turns around like, I knew that was going in. So that wasn't the thing.
It's too easy. I will say that if everyone is on the same footing, he may get an open look like that in the tournament. So, it's good for him to get those reps. Given defenses for what they are and people being out of shape and needing some time, I could see him catching the Portland defense napping in that first game.
Well, the easiest game for the LA Galaxy will be also their most short-handiest. They're most short-handed. I like that better. Yeah, that was good. The first one wasn't actually a word. Joe Corona. People really want to argue with me on this one, and I'm going to tell you that, have I received absolute confirmation? No, but as we all know, the first three games of the tournament are regular season games. We know that they're regular season games because they say these games count for the regular season. Joe Corona got 2 yellow cards. That equals a red card, and a red card means you miss the next game. That happened in Vancouver. The next game will be against Portland, so you can expect that Joe Corona will miss the first game of the tournament along with Jonathan Dos Santos. And now you get to throw question marks into Chicharito and whether or not he's going to be ready to come back and do that as well. So the Galaxy could be very shorthanded if they go into this game without Chicharito, without Joe Corona. And listen, I think Joe's a borderline starter right now anyway, but with Jonathan Dos Santos out, he's a starter. So you throw that in there. Without Jonathan Dos Santos, this tournament's going to be 3 games and have a nice day. We'll see you back in LA. It's unfortunate both that Corona will be suspended and that Jonathan Dos Santos is gone and that you have to worry about a Chicharito injury right now. But that's sort of how it is. For my money, Joe wasn't exactly the best. It's really hard. I mean, who's the best player on the field for you? And if you don't say Zubac, I'll kick you out. No, it was Pavon.
I was going to say, is this a trick question? Do we even need to have this argument? Yeah, it's Pavon by a mile. So, we knew this going in, that Corona probably wasn't going to be starting. So I'm curious to see how it's going to work out. It's going to be heavy on the other teams as well. We're going to see how many other teams are missing players as these teams come in. Are there players who are going to test positive and maybe going to miss that first game? Is that going to be an issue? Yes, the outlook isn't great. If we shook our magic 8 ball and looked at it, outlook not looking promising with the Galaxy based on the information we have now, but it could look worse for other teams in the group. And so it's not the best outlook to have when you go into a tournament. You want the other teams to be less, more right. Less, worse, right. Short-handiest. Yes. You want them to not be as good, but at the same time, that's the reality of this tournament and what it's going to look like.
As we look at Jonathan Dos Santos, certainly whenever he was injured, people started making the comparisons to Roman Alessandrini. I will tell you right now, it's a fair comparison. I went and obviously, I tracked DP/MVP minutes. That way I can sort of watch this. I've been doing it since, I think, 2017, but, let's start in 2018. If you look at Roman Alessandrini, and by the way, in 2017, he had a great year. He played a lot of games, so it was surprising to sort of see him drop off. In 2018, Roman Alessandrini played 62.7% of the total available minutes. That's every minute of every game. How many minutes did you play? So 62.7%. Jonathan Dos Santos played 62.4%. And in that year, it was Giovanni Dos Santos who was the other designated player, and he played 26.9% in 2018. You go over to the DP minutes in 2019, and Zlatan Ibrahimovic obviously was one of those players. He played 85.3%. Roman Alessandrini played 9.2%. We know, obviously, with the season-ending injury, although it wasn't season-ending because he came back right as it was time for the playoffs. Jonathan Dos Santos played 83.2%. So if you take Jonathan Dos Santos' 2019 and you sort of throw it against, Roman Alessandrini's 2017, you have a pretty good comparison of where those guys are. So far, they've really sort of matched that. Here's the problem is that if you go for the DP minutes just in 2020, remember only 2 games played, Jonathan Dos Santos has only played 25% of the minutes because he only played 1/2 out of 4 halves. And you can say, well, it's a little harsh to be judging him on that. And I agree. But at the same time, he wasn't available for, the first, it was the first game and then basically was only available for the first half of the second game and came out injured. So, as much as Jonathan Dos Santos is the captain of this team, as much as we all agree that this team revolves sort of around how he plays, he has been absent a lot in terms of being on the field, and I think more so whenever his brother was also absent, or maybe we shade those two together whenever they were together. But, the numbers are rather similar to Roman Alessandrini.
Yeah, they're similar. They're like for like. Actually, the 2018 numbers for Alessandrini is surprising. That's more than I thought it was going to be. I thought he played less that season, but I think when you average it out with his 2019, that's probably where I get that skewed view. With Jonathan, he's been the engine of this team when he's on the field, particularly last season, is where he really showed how important and how valuable he is. So it is a little bit harsh to say he's only at 25%, given there were only 2 games. The hypothetical world that I live in, if this was a nagging injury with nerves and he had all this time off, maybe that didn't help. If they were to continue and they had a regular season, if COVID didn't exist, would he have noticed this nerve thing sooner and maybe gotten it taken care of sooner? That way it pushed the timeline up and maybe he'd get more games. Or is this something that maybe wipes him out and maybe he misses even more games because of it? So it's just kind of an interesting hypothetical that we'll never know. So it's a little bit harsh. When he's on the field, he's important, and I think that's how you should judge him I don't think he's at the level where he's missed so many games that you start calling him an injury concern just yet. It's possible this is something that it can create that, but given what he's shown us, I don't think that's the issue with him.
I'll say it. I think he's an injury concern. There we go. Because you said I couldn't say it. That's really why I wanted to say it. So, I'm going to put it on a shirt. It says injury concern. That's a good shirt idea. If you just put injury concern on it, because I am an injury concern everywhere I walk. $20 in the COG store. We'll work on that one. Let's talk a little bit about some sad news, and then we'll follow it up with some happy news. And I'll tell you that it was a lot of fun, Eric. One of the first things that you and I really got to do together whenever we started bringing you on full time was we got to go to an airport and welcome Juninho back to the LA Galaxy. We were there to cover it, and we got to talk to him whenever he landed. It was a lot of fun. We had a good time. The good old days when you didn't have to worry about being in a crowd of people.
So that really feels about 10 years ago.
You're absolutely right. It does feel that long. Yeah. So Juninho came back, but he announced he has retired from professional soccer. He had 210 appearances in Major League Soccer. He was an MLS Cup winner in 2011, 2012, and 2014. It's funny to think that Marcelo Sarvas didn't come into the team and play on it until 2012, which again is a great argument as to why 2012 might be the best LA Galaxy team ever, because you had a full year of Robbie Keane and you got Marcelo Sarvas that you added to the 2011 team. How is that? Okay, we're not going to go over this again. I will.
They were wrong.
People
voted.
Yeah, people voted. They didn't get it right, but hey, it is what it is. You guys said 2011 was the best LA Galaxy team ever. It was because of the results. I understand that. In a better league with a better team, the LA Galaxy did amazing things in 2012 and put in a second half that probably would be unmatched in Major League Soccer whenever you really look at it. So anyway, Juninho makes that retirement. Juninho sits as, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 for games started on the LA Galaxy. 180 games, right behind Greg Vanney. 188 for Todd Donovan. 196 for AJ De La Garza. Cienfuegos, 198. Landon Donovan, 237. Kevin Hartman, 238. Kobe Jones, 281 games and starts. You also look at minutes played. Juninho is in the top 10 in that list with 15,621. Kobe Jones the most, 25,157. You have assists as well. Juninho sits there with 23 all-time player games played and assists. So it's 180. He has 189 games played and 23 assists in that group, and he sits in the top 10 in that one as well. So an unbelievable career for Juninho. I think it's a little sad that you didn't really get to see him play with the LA Galaxy again, but with injuries and just the way it was. My good friend Chris Tucker said, I'm glad we could put another, he said he was glad the LA Galaxy could put another $130,000 in Juninho's pocket before he decided to go, which is, it's a tip of the cap to what Juninho brought to the LA Galaxy.
Yeah, and you mentioned it. It's not surprising at all that he's in the top 10 in games played and minutes played. He was an absolute workhorse. When we talk about Jonathan Dos Santos being the engine of our current LA Galaxy team, I think Juninho was the engine of that LA Galaxy dynasty era. Juninho was right in the middle, making everything happen. And it's one of those things you felt. Maybe there weren't stats to back it up, but the stat that I think is most important is when the Galaxy announced his retirement, they had videos from Robbie Keane and Landon Donovan where they basically said as much, that all the other players got the headlines, but Juninho was one of the unsung heroes, pulling the strings, making the things happen. So to have someone like Robbie Keane, who, arguably the greatest MLS DP that there's been in the league.
There's no argument. What, have you been watching MLS again?
I was going to say I've been watching the Call Up too much.
That's right.
Or no, what's Extra Time presented by Continental. Yeah, I like the Call Up. Call Up's good. But anyway, to have Robbie Keane, someone with all those accolades and international experience, and to have him say that Juninho was the workhorse, the one pulling the strings, and the same thing with Landon Donovan, you already know his resume. That tells you everything you need to know about Juninho, and that's why he was a fan favorite. That's why people we're happy to bring him back on the roster, even though the productivity may not have been there. You take care of your people, you're happy to see them back. So, hats off to Juninho, a wonderful career. 31, maybe he saw the writing on the wall and he had some things cooking in the background to make that retirement a little bit easier.
Yeah, we'll talk about those things cooking in the background here shortly. I just want to say it was great because MLS showed a picture of Giovinco doing some stuff and the whole deal. They're like, this is one of the greatest designated players. They're making the argument that he's the best ever, like in Major League Soccer. And somebody said he looks like a Robbie Keane just with less cups, right? And I was like, ooh, see,
right on the nose.
That's where you forget about how good Robbie Keane made it, but it was these whole teams. Those teams were just outstanding teams. If I could get in a time machine, I'm sure there's lots of places I could go and do it. The signing of the Declaration of Independence, maybe. No, I want to go back and watch 2011 and 2012 LA Galaxy play on a regular freaking basis because, knowing what I know now, understanding what I know now about the game of soccer, and I've always been a student of the game, and I played it whenever I was younger. But just watching it, I think I would have a better appreciation for what we were all seeing. It was just all like, and I think everybody's the same way. You just expected those teams to win, and it was just like, oh yeah, it's nice to go to this. So you go to the stadium. Well, the Galaxy are clearly going to win tonight. It's just by how much. Like, what's it going to look like? The whole deal.
That's what made the drop off as we went toward 2017. That's what made that so difficult. It was so commonplace for you knew the Galaxy were walking out with 3 points or at least something close. So the further they got away from that, the more shocking it was to the fans who had been around, maybe since the beginning, or maybe they came on board a little bit later. It was just you realize that you had a good thing and how special it was. So you're absolutely right. Maybe take it for granted in the moment, but that was a special time to be a LA Galaxy fan.
Could have gone to the White House in 2020 or 2012. Eric, I could have gone to the White House to cover the LA Galaxy whenever they went to visit the White House. I mean, we'd have a discussion about that. 2012. In 2012, I could have gone to the White House, but I was like, they'll be back. It'll be fine. Bottom line is, if you ever get a chance to go to the White House and cover the LA Galaxy, you go to the White House and cover the LA Galaxy. And they were there with the Kings in 2012 too. Biggest mistake of my life. That was it. That was it. Also understanding that like playing sports is not really a job. It's a lot of fun, and I probably should have taken that a little more seriously. Those two things are probably my biggest regrets. Let's get to a little bit of the good news, though. We talked about Juninho retiring. He talked about things that were cooking up in the background, and the Hammer's absolutely right. The LA Galaxy announced the day after Juninho's retirement that Juninho and Marcelo Sarvis would be teaming up again as they head to the LA Galaxy Academy coaching staff. I'm critical of the LA Galaxy whenever they make mistakes. I think it happens too often, quite honestly. And so you get a lot of that from what we do and whenever we cover the LA Galaxy. I am perfectly happy to jump up and down and tell you that they got this so right. The biggest home run, I didn't even fathom this as being a possibility that you would get Marcelo Sarvis and Juninho. Somebody said what? The most dominant midfield pairing in Major League Soccer history. It very well could be, because I don't know if you could match anybody. They were, quote unquote, the engine of those LA Galaxy teams in 2012, 2013, 2014. And I think we all remember that Marcelo Sarvis played for Alajuelense. And the LA Galaxy played them in a CONCACAF Champions League match, and Bruce saw Marcelo Sarvis and was like, we should get him. And then he went out and got him. Just having these two together, and it's so different because you can bring somebody like Landon Donovan or Robbie Keane, and you can have them be like help out the coaching staff, and you can have them be these academy guys. You can have Zlatan go talk to the academy kids. It's all great. Those guys all have supreme talent that like sees no bounds, and they don't understand how everybody doesn't work the way that they do. And it's like, well, it's easy. You just flick, you just do this, and the ball does this. And for them, it's easy. The fact that you have two guys who were grinders, who knew how to be a professional, to show up, and how to put their stamp on every single game that they played, and just that not give up. You have the history of winning. You have the understanding of what it means to play for the LA Galaxy. You have all these things, the understanding of what it means to be a professional soccer player and not be a superstar. All these things that you can impart to academy kids. I don't know how it gets any better than having somebody like Juninho and Marcelo Sarvis on the academy coaching staff. If they go to LA Galaxy 2 and then Robbie Keane comes back and is the coach for LA Galaxy 2, I'll just go ahead and switch. We'll just be an LA Galaxy 2 podcast. I'll just be good.
I was going to say, thank you for stealing absolutely every one of my points that I was going to make. You're absolutely right. We watched, we had Michael Jordan fever with The Last Dance. And why players like that maybe don't make the best coaches or leaders, because they don't understand. Even Michael Jordan, he had a great work ethic, but he had the supreme talent as well. And you're right, with Zlatan, maybe it comes a little too easy. But you're right, these are players who know how to put in the hard work. They know they're going to hopefully impart that on a young generation of players coming up. I think something that maybe it's a little bit of a stereotype, but I think it shouldn't get swept under the rug, that these are two Brazilians, and Brazil is a world soccer power. And coming from the country they come from and knowing what they know and how they were brought up, imparting that on the youth. I'm a big believer that there's a lot of youth soccer in America. There's a lot to improve. So when you bring in a couple of Brazilians who are going to be able to bring that beautiful game and a little bit of that samba soccer style and impart that on your youth academy, I only see positives from that. And then, with it being a home run, it's absolutely a PR home run because these are beloved players, beloved, in the part of the dynasty era. So you could say, well, it's a PR move, but at the same time, Sarvis was coaching. I believe he was coaching with the Rapids. I believe he had a little bit of coaching experience with some of the youth clubs in DC from his time there. So he's someone who comes with experience and has coaching experience. And then you have the MLS experience of Juninho. So it's a home run that you pair them together because they worked so well on the field. It seems like they're going to have that same type of relationship off the field. So it's a great PR move, a great move for your academy, a great move for your players. It keeps the fans happy. It's just I can't see a negative to this, and it just makes you so happy, especially with the Juninho Love Fest earlier in the week, and everyone kind of remembering the good times, and then to follow it up with the Sarvis news, it kind of blew my socks off, because it's just great to see them together again, see them with the LA Galaxy crest. You mentioned that they know what it means to play for the LA Galaxy. That's another one of those things. How do you explain that? How do you measure that? But they have it. So right. I don't know how you can use that as a metric, but at the same time, if you could measure that, they would have it in spades. So I think that's important as well. They know the winning culture and, globally what the LA Galaxy organization is and how they can use that as a selling point to kids who may not realize that.
Well, we go from a PR win, right? This was absolutely the perfect thing. And everything looks, amazing. You're like, okay, cool. This was absolutely it is, to what I'm going to call PR loss. Okay. This is a PR loss, and it is what it is, but it could easily be solved. And I'm expecting somebody to solve this. As you know, the longest streak in professional sports history is the LA Galaxy's July 4th game. Okay. Everybody knows that the LA Galaxy have had a July 4th game since the very first season in 1996, and they have hosted a July 4th game all the way through. And this would have been the 25th consecutive season that the LA Galaxy hosted a July 4th game. We all know that we are not going to get a July 4th game this year. All right. That's not going to happen. It's not going to be a thing. It can't. And, that sucks. So, realistically, this streak comes to an end. And you can say, well, but not really, because if we could have a game, then it would get, listen, it ends. You can't, it's going to have an asterisk next to it, and we're all going to have to deal with that. All right.
I think that's something that moving forward this year, I think all these streaks, you just have to throw it out. You can't say, oh, they missed a year or they didn't get it in 2020. I think everyone's just going to have to, this is going to be a caveat year. You can't hold it against you, but continue.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You absolutely can, because there's ways of fixing this. Well, so the July 4th streak is coming to an end. All I'm asking, and I don't think this is a big ask, if I could put it together, I would put it together. All I'm asking is for Cosmo to take a sparkler, light it off, and stick it in the center of the field on July 4th, and we call it the streak continues. Is it really that? Look, fireworks show. Put it on your Instagram Live. You're done. Streak continues. Away they go. Okay, you could save this, and it's something stupid, right? It's stupid. That's Josh. This is ridiculous. I can't believe you're doing. I don't care if you record it beforehand. I don't care about any of that stuff. Just get it done and show it, because it's a PR win. Because I know Galaxy fans, we're all like, listen, I don't know about the rest of you, but I was like, so what do people do on July 4th whenever they're like, not going to a soccer game? Because I've been covering the LA Galaxy for so long. I missed like one when my son was when my firstborn son was like, I don't know, 5 or 6, and he was coming out to visit, and so we were like, oh, well, I'll miss it, and we'll go see the fireworks. So we did it one year, and it was weird. And I was like, I should just go to a soccer game. That makes a lot more sense. So, you could do it, and everybody wants it to happen. So just make it happen. It's Cosmo, sparkler. Maybe it's like one of those like fireworks that only shoots like 3 inches off out of the spout.
A little snake. Yeah.
Maybe it's a snake.
Loop.
Yeah, center. You could do it. You could have it. Thank you very much. July 4th, we're done, and you could do it. And
I had an alternative solution, which
yes.
You scared me at first when you said, Cosmo, take a sparkler and stick it, and then in the air. In the air is where you followed with. But they had a scrimmage today, right? They're going to train on Saturday. Have the scrimmage on Saturday. You technically have a game on July 4th. Cosmo lights the sparkler. Streak intact.
There, I see.
They can still fix this. You have another scrimmage on Saturday. We can fix this. We can make this right.
You could have it be yellow versus white, and you could get it. You could have a whole other teams. You could mix up the stuff again. It's funny though, because you and I were talking, and I remember after last July 4th, I said that I had a little bit of an inside track on possibly what the LA Galaxy were going to do this July 4th, and I said I would wait because things could change and the whole deal. And so I don't know. Being that this year got blown up, right, and that's probably the most apt way to describe this year.
Things definitely changed this year, that's for sure.
Yes, things definitely changed. I will tell you what the LA Galaxy, what I was told that the LA Galaxy were planning. And it was basically, we know that the lights can be synced to lots of things. And so they were going to have the lights inside the stadium, I think with some like lasers and some fireworks inside the stadium. Do you remember when they had fireworks inside the stadium and everybody was like, okay, that was a little crazy? I think they were gonna go back and do some of that with it all synced up to music, the lights, lasers, fireworks, all that stuff, and it was all gonna be like this one big giant production. And then they had already basically started working on it after last July 4th. So I don't know if that ever happens, but that's what was going to happen this July 4th. So it was going to be like the big daddy of all sort of fireworks displays that have sort of taken place at Dignity Health Sports Park, StubHub Center, Home Depot Center. As you go back, it was a chance to really show the stadium off, and we missed that. So again, sparkler, center field, July 4th, Instagram Live, get it done, keep the streak going, make people happy, make us laugh. Okay, we need the laugh. just
keep
a little
streak
bit.
Intact.
LA Galaxy events that are going on tomorrow, Friday, July 3rd, 11 a.m. This is the socially distant rally we told you about on Monday. And so you need to RSVP. There's links, I believe, on the LA Galaxy website. You're basically going to park along driveway A. Stay in your cars, please. Stay in your cars. Make me not say that this was a bad idea. All right. Stay in your cars. Yeah, I know. Just go ahead.
I have a little bit more information. I did RSVP. I'm not going. I RSVP just in case. But just a little bit. They say arrive if you are planning on attending. Arrive before 10:30. It seems like they're going to need to line up cars, have everyone parked and ready to go. So you want to be there before 10:30, so everything can go off without a hitch at 11. Enter through gate A, so that's the main entrance with the overhang where it says Dignity Health Sports Park with the big LA Galaxy logo. So enter on that entrance. They're asking you that they're saying that you're not permitted to exit your vehicle. So plan on using the restroom in advance. If you are going, make sure you take care of all that. And then face coverings are mandatory. So, if you have your face covering, your LA Galaxy face coverings, make sure you're wearing that. Socially distancing photo opportunities. I imagine they're not going to get too close, but if they are going to get in range for you to take a photo, wear your mask, wear your darn mask.
If you got one of them,
just the info.
Yeah, if you fancy iPhone, hit the 2 times so you zoom in a little bit. All right, you gotta get that one rocking and rolling for it. But the players are supposed to walk down. It should be fun. So go be safe. I was also trying to go, and I just barely made it back in time for this show. So I think with the 7-month-old, he turned 7 today. Jake is doing well. Eventually, he's going to make a podcast appearance. The only problem is he goes to sleep like before 7 o'clock. So we'll have to figure it. It'll have to be a daytime. I also we're talking about starting times and different things. Pay attention to the Corner of the Galaxy schedule because things are going to shift a little bit with the games that are going to be played. I think only one has to shift. And then it looks like the game that is going to be held on Thursday, the last game against Houston, that kicks off at 5, which means it'll be done at 7. So there's a good chance. Yeah. So there's a good chance that we can still have a live show directly following that show. So you'll get a post game Corner of the Galaxy from that one on my birthday. So it should be great. I plan on wearing a hat and nothing else. So it'll be a lot of good times.
Birthday.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
You don't
we
have
should say
birthday suit on your birthday.
Yeah, who knows? Who knew? I think you do. I think it's mandatory. The LA Galaxy, by the way, have had 0 positive COVID-19 tests since the testing began. So 0. That's why you want to keep your face mask on and keep your distance. Don't do this. There's enough problems over right now in Orlando, and I think we can.
Yeah, if you're a fan and you're the one who infected the team, you don't want that. You don't want to be that person.
Yeah, you don't be that person at all. Here's what we have, and things have been ramping up crazily quick in Orlando. And this isn't necessarily an Orlando problem, although we've certainly seen the COVID positive tests in Orlando skyrocket, in the United States it's skyrocketing. So I mean, you can look at all this and say there's no safe place. Southern California is a hotbed right now as well. We can't go to New York and we can't go to Europe. So just keep all that in mind as we're going through this. And we're not gonna scare you with this stuff, because I think that there's some understanding of what's going on, but there's some things that you need to watch for to understand whether or not we're going to have an Orlando tournament, Eric, because while I don't think it's, thin ice, I think that there's definitely some problems. So earlier we found out that FC Dallas basically had 6 players that tested positive, and they had 4 staff members. Whenever I joked around on last Thursday's show, I think, and I picked FC Dallas as most likely to have the most cases, I did not foresee this. This was not. I'm not a genius. I really just picked a state that was open and a team that was young in order to sort of make that happen. That was my thinking behind this. So
with the graph, the X's crossed on that graph, big time.
They did on Dallas. And you could also look at teams like Miami and Orlando. Miami's not as young, or Orlando's not as young. Dallas is like the youngest team always in my mind with all their academy guys. So I'm looking for people who think they're invincible and they're in an open state and have been in an open state for a while, even though that's quickly ratcheting back in Texas. So they went, and here's what happened is 2 tested positive when they arrived, basically. And they said, you guys, we got to separate you guys, and we're going to move you out, and you have to stay away from everybody because you have positive tests. Everybody else's test came back negative. Then what happens is, and there's a lag on coronavirus. I mean, if you don't have enough of the virus built up inside of you, you can test, you can be negative, and then you can have a positive test. And so there's all these sort of, things that happen that can happen. So what you had was 4 more players testing positive, I think 2 or 3 days after they had arrived, which means they already trained and they already interacted with some other MLS players. So what you're looking for, and now I think the entire FC Dallas team has been quarantined, and they're basically not allowed to train, and they weren't allowed to train yesterday and today, and they're waiting basically for more tests to come back, and those tests are going to be showing whether or not people are positive, negative, and that type of thing. And if enough people are negative, then they'll allow FC Dallas to sort of come back into this. The problem here is that it feels like the bubble has been pierced, and that's not necessarily true. First of all, it's a really bad bubble to begin with, so it's hard to pierce a bad bubble. There's already holes in it, so there's a whole bunch of stuff there. But what you're seeing is, same with Columbus, who just came in, and I think they have a positive test. All these things is people getting this, not in Orlando, but bringing it to Orlando. They got, the FC Dallas players got it in Dallas. It lagged a little bit, which is why you're seeing them test positive in Orlando. But this isn't that they went to Orlando and that's how they got it. You're not seeing that yet. You could see that, but that's not what you're seeing yet. And so, MLS has a chance to sort of catch this. But what to me it shows, Eric, is that the quarantine before heading to originally it was supposed to be 14 days before your first game. You had to show up so that way you could be quarantined for 14 full days, basically in the bubble, and they could eliminate all of these possible issues by holding people in the bubble for the duration of what they believe is the the incubation period of coronavirus. And so then they shorted it to 7 days. Well, what you're seeing is that you're getting people who picked it up before they left, and now you're getting people who test positive. And so after the 7 days, most people get it within 7 days and show signs within 7 days and test positive within 7 days. They're using that as sort of their backstop, and we could see that being an issue because now it looks like you could possibly have community spread within the bubble if this continues. There are teams right now, Eric, Toronto, Greg Vanney said, I don't know if we want to go because we're sort of waiting to see what's happening there. And I wanted to ask the same question to Dennis DeClosa, and I didn't get my question in. If they were also considering delaying their sort of arrival, which you're supposed to be there 7 days before, but listen, things are changing.
And Vanney even mentioned when he made those statements, he says, where they're coming from in Toronto, things are a lot more under control. So the less time that they could spend somewhere where it's not necessarily under control, like Orlando. They wanted to do that as much as possible. So I think as long as they're testing in their home markets and it's still coming back negative, I think that's okay. The argument of shutting the whole thing down because there's teams now coming in and players are testing positive, I don't think there's anything wrong for people to want this tournament to happen, people in sports. Obviously, you don't want anything bad to happen, and you always have that caveat. It's not worth it if it's going to get someone sick or something bad is going to happen. But if they're able to keep things under control, and that's what this was sold as, is that they're going to be testing and making sure everyone's safe, then that's how you want to make it run. The concern is you're now having people from different states who possibly have the virus and are now coming together, and you're now bringing it into essentially a petri dish. So that bubble now becomes an area where you're now just a breeding zone for the virus. So that's the one thing. They just have to be very careful with the precautions that are in place, because this thing can go sideways, and it can go sideways in a very, very bad way. So I just hope that, whatever they need to do to make things right, do it. If it does start to look bad, I think they need to get out in front of it and maybe realize that maybe it's not worth it. If they see the writing on the wall that this is going to end up very bad for everyone who comes into the bubble.
Yeah, I think and we talked about it on Monday, but the only saving grace for MLS right now, Eric, is the fact that, nobody seems to be really sick, or they're just really mild sort of symptoms. Nobody's been sent to the hospital. Nobody's in dire need. I mean, we talked about, I know on the group chat that we were having, we were saying, don't, God forbid anything should happen to some of the older coaches. You look at Valdecantos is an older guy. You look at Bruce Arena. Like, if something happens to Bruce Arena because you had to have a soccer game, then, what burn it all down.
Yeah, I think Valdecantos would make the virus run laps and get rid of it that way. Yeah, I think he's better than that.
It definitely could. That could be it. So anyway, so that's what's going on. 5 more teams showed up in Orlando today, and I don't have all of them in front of me. I had them at some point. Orlando. Let's see. I think Nashville, I know, was one of them. They had delayed by 1 day, but now they are there. I think Columbus is also there. Oh, Columbus was already there. So there's 5 other teams. Basically, that puts us at. Let's see. We had 11 teams, I think, so far. 11 teams inside the bubble, which gives us 19. Let's see, 11, 26. Do the math, Eric. It hurts my head.
Say, I take 26. I'm not going to answer that question. 26 minus 11. That's
17.
There it
17
is.
teams still? No, that's too many. No, that doesn't work. No, you have to take the 10. 26 minus 11, 10 is 16, 15. So 15. 14 more teams? 15? 14. Oh, my God. This is, you know what? It's been a long day. Like I said, I barely got. I'm just going to wait for the chat room to tell me how much 26 minus 11 is, because I can't do math today. 16, 15. I'm going to say 15. And then that means there's 14 more teams.
Is my mic on?
No, it's not. Cut it off. We don't need to hear it. I don't know. Whatever. However many that is. So that's where we sit with the LA Galaxy headed on Monday. The last team to show up, just that way everybody is very much aware. And so we will certainly see where all of that goes. All right. I'm trying to think, is there anything else? We talked about the events going on. Remember, there's the send-off on Monday. It's a Zoom send-off. You can possibly, if you're a season ticket member, you get an exclusive send-off to this Zoom call where guys will walk by as they head to the bus and head on for their tournament in Orlando. So that's on the 6th before they get going. So I think that's about it. Injury news, we covered the result. By the way, the Gray team won 2-0, a penalty kick and a goal from Cristian Pavon. Just in case we didn't cover that, it so doesn't matter. So that wasn't an important part of this. But some interesting stuff now on tap for the LA Galaxy. I don't know that we have any clearer picture. I don't know that we're going to get a clearer picture. And the LA Galaxy are going to be playing Portland in no time. So we'll see how that goes.
In less than 2 weeks, we're going to see how they really line up and what the tactics look like.
Yeah, we couldn't ballpark the number of teams, so we couldn't talk our way away from that one either. So that was good. So we'll see how all that goes. Remember, the LA Galaxy will kick off and play against Portland on Monday, July 13th, 2020, 7:30 p.m. kickoff time. That game on FS1, and then it is Saturday, July 18th, 7:30 Pacific time. That is the Orlando El Tráfico against LAFC. That one's on ESPN, and then Fox Sports 1 closes it up FS1 again Thursday, July 23rd, 5 p.m. Head to cornerofthegalaxy.com, click on the live button button. And when you do, you're going to find exactly sort of what we imagine our schedule will be. Some of that could change. I may actually be driving to Denver and back and doing some other things. So we'll see if what happens and all that. But the LA Galaxy getting closer and closer now to playing games on that actually count. So we'll see how that goes.
Yep.
Regular season in effect. Anything else, Eric?
Well, speaking of cornerofthegalaxy.com, a lot of concern over the MLS's back tournament. Is it going to happen? Are how many positive cases? So I can tell you right now, there is one league that is happening with 0 positive confirmed cases that is still going. They're midway through, and that's Liga G96. So if you go to cornerofthegalaxy.com, click on the Liga G96 button. That's where my team, Cosmo SC, currently sits on top of the standings. So we're not going anywhere. You could still find us on Twitch, still get your soccer fix, still get in touch with your LA Galaxy community. Still a great way. We're having tons of fun. There was a team of the season so far released today because we're at our halfway point. So still having a lot of fun with that. So, make sure you're following along. The standings are up on the Corner of the Galaxy website, and then of course on Twitter it's always up and running with those fake pro clubs players and everyone having a good time with it. So it's a nice little distraction. Again, said it once, say it 1,000 times. If you're not in on Cosmo SC and Liga G96, doesn't even have to be Cosmo SC. Just get in with the fun. Join a club. Players are always needed. We're having trials, so go ahead and join the fun with Liga G96.
Always fun. Always a good time. All right. Eric, tell people where they can find you. Let's go.
You can find me on Twitter at GISHammer. You can also find me on Instagram at Galaxy Profile. That's Galaxy PROFOUL. And I'm still on Twitch. We're planning to continue some interaction during the MLS's back tournament. So on Twitch, that's twitch.tv/EVHammer9.
All right, if you're looking for me on Twitter, at JGuesman, JGUESMAN, at Galaxy Podcast, cornerofthegalaxy.com, podcasts, articles, all that stuff I'll be writing over the long holiday weekend. Be safe. Be smart. That goes for MLS players. That goes for you. You're going to be pressured into hanging out with family this weekend. Maybe don't do it. Maybe just chill a little bit. Stay at home. Quarantine yourself. Sounds like a good plan. All right, for Mr. Eric, the Portuguese Hammer, I'm Josh Pato Guesman. You've been listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast, and be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening, and we ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye.